Hey there, foster friends and family. I'm Charles, and you're listening to the Foster Dad Directive podcast, where we explore the foster care system. In this episode, we'll be talking about the Foster Care Review Board. Please know that I am not a trained professional. The views expressed on this podcast are of the host, and in the future, other hosts or guests, and do not constitute professional advice unless otherwise stated by said guest. Please ensure you seek adequate and effective legal counsel to best protect yourself in this ever-changing system, especially for those of you outside of the state of Michigan. Updates. The episode's releasing a lot later than I had hoped. My dog decided that she wanted to bark multiple times throughout my first recording, and then every recording after that I have felt is subpar and just kind of got into my own head. So I apologize that it's releasing so late. I'm going to do my best to offset it in the future, plan ahead, especially because we had a busy weekend. We went to an adult summer camp for the Time Suck podcast that I listened to, so not an excuse. It's just did not think that far ahead. I had everything written up, everything ready to go, and then just had multiple interviews today. So and the second update is that for when I've mentioned Cassie, that is actually my wife, so I just wanted to update that. I completely forgot to put it in my About Me episode of the podcast. So anytime you hear that, that's my wife. She's done an amazing job with the kid. Takes the brunt of the responsibility, especially with meals, stuff like that. Since I work thirds, I do a lot of the appointments and she does a lot of the heavy lifting. So for the Foster Care Review Board, there are multiple MCLs. These are the Michigan compiled laws that oversee and lay out guidelines for the Foster Care Review Board. This puts limits in place, such as so many per county, the limit on the size that it can be, other rules that they have to follow, and powers that they do have. So if you want to look these up for your specific state or Michigan, you can actually go online. I know a lot of the information for this podcast actually came from One Court of Justice Michigan's website. They also have a lot of information on the Foster Care Review Board. It's just a huge organization that does a lot of work for the foster care system. So the Foster Care Review Board is a system of third-party review initially established by the Public Act 422 of 1984. And was most recently amended by Public Act 170 of 1997. Just kind of some trivia right there. If you want to go and look at exactly what those entail, you can actually go online, look at the specific laws behind them. This legislature was created to help ensure safe and timely permanency for children in the foster care system. This program is administered by the State Court Administration Office of the Michigan Supreme Court and is composed completely of citizen volunteers, so none of them are paid for their time that they use for the Foster Care Review Board. Boards meet once a month to review both randomly selected and, in our case, requested cases of children currently in the foster care system. So you will find that they go through, they'll randomly select them, or if a foster care family or other involved party has concerns, they can also request it as well. With what the Foster Care Review Board does is they write their findings and related recommendations that are then forwarded on to the court, to the Department of Health and Human Services, the contract agencies, and other parties directly involved in the case, such as foster parents, attorneys, all those involved people. So if you're interested in becoming a volunteer for the Foster Care Review Board, new volunteers participate in an initial orientation, and all board members participate in an annual training on policies and issues related to the foster care system. There are currently 75 dedicated volunteers in the state of Michigan. These are well-trained citizens who donate approximately 10,000 hours of their time annually to help promote the safety and well-being of Michigan's most vulnerable children. So that means each of these volunteers donates hundreds of hours of their time. So these people go out of their way to ensure that children are being taken care of. And like it said, the most vulnerable children in Michigan, those in the foster care system, to ensure that they are safe and the right decisions are being made in their well-being. State statute also requires publication of an annual report by the Foster Care Review Board. to the Michigan legislature and governor. This annual report details the efforts of the review board program and shares with Michigan policymakers some of the issues that these volunteers identify and as they review foster care cases throughout the state. So this helps with new laws that'll be coming into effect, that policymakers can see where funds are maybe needed, issues that are arising, such as hurdles to placement. Maybe too many children are being, placed with the wrong type of families, with foster care families instead of biological family, or maybe the biological family placement's not working out or not getting the right resources. So it's a whole slew of things that they get to provide because they look at these cases and actually see them. So it's absolutely amazing that they do that, because that just the amount of hours still boggles my mind that they donate that much of their time. So the primary services of the review board include reviewing requested cases of children in the foster care system. These requests come by the court and other interested parties and are made by completing one of the following forms. The first one is the court review request form, which is completed by judges and referees. And the second one is general review request form. This is all other interested parties, such as CASAs, which we'll go over in an episode, DHHS. I'll probably go over that system as well. Agency workers, tribes, foster parents, LGALs. I'll definitely have to go over them. I believe that is my next episode, actually. Parents, attorneys, therapists, and any youth over 11 years old. I actually didn't know this. I know when my parents split up, I believe it was over 12 or 13, you got a little bit of a say, but it's good to see that youth over 11 years old in the foster care system do get to kind of see what's going on and can actually request if they feel that things aren't going properly. So I'm super glad to see that, because children that past a certain age should have some say or some anonymity, I guess you'd call it, in their care, and having a little bit of at least know what's going on, because I can only imagine a lot of these kids go through more chaos in their lifetime than I've seen in my 35 years on this planet. One of the services is conducting appeals by foster parents of children being moved by the foster care agency. That was our case with the two boys, especially with the kid being moved, and then our concerns with the virtual visits and the chaos behind them. I mean, he went from being a kid who could talk your ear off and do 9 million podcasts a day to a kid who, their visit yesterday, I think he spent 8 minutes on the phone before he kind of gave up and didn't want to do it anymore, which is not like him, especially when his brother was trying to play with him on the phone. So it's just a sad thing. So they also provide information and referrals regarding foster care programs and services to the general public, which is good, especially if you don't know about it. That way you could help other foster kids and make even underfunded programs known to the general public. Publishing that annual report, which with related recommendations and to the legislature and governor regarding critical needs of the foster care system. And finally, advocating for essential improvements in the delivery and statewide foster care services with key policymakers and funding providers. For the foster parent appeals, such as we had, this is covered by MCL 712A.13B. This states foster parents, including relative care providers, may appeal to the Foster Care Review Board when the supervising agency is planning to move a child from their care and the foster parents do not agree. Pursuant to the law, the agency must provide the foster parents with notice of the proposed move and inform them that they may appeal within 3 days to the review board. So if you're a foster parent or a child and you are currently, I think this pertains actually more to the foster parents. Yeah, it is foster parent appeals. I'm a dummy sometimes. But if the foster care agency does not give you the information, please make sure you reach out and find it and then report them for it, because if they're hiding the information, they might not be doing something properly, and it is hindering your legal rights here in Michigan. So please make sure that you are reaching out and complete that in a timely manner. You have 3 business days to complete that, and then there is a written response where you explain the whole situation and what you are concerned about. So please make sure you do that, especially if you believe that something is being done improperly, and make sure you let them know about it. So eligibility for the appeal. By statute, a foster parent cannot appeal the child's move if any of the following conditions exist. The person providing foster care requests or agrees to the change. So if you have a bad day and request to have a child removed from your home, just know that you won't be able to undo that. So if you truly care about that child, please make sure you are not making rash decisions and having them removed. Take your time, de-stress, come to terms with everything, and please don't throw a foster child out just for like one bad day, especially if it's a minor like hiccup. It could just be a bad day all around for everybody and might be something that the child even regrets. The second thing is a contracted social services agency of a federally recognized tribal government is providing the primary case management. And the third is, even if the person providing the foster care placement objects to the proposed change in placement, one of these following conditions applies. The court orders the child to be returned home. The change in placement is less than 30 days after the child's initial removal from the child's home. The court orders the child to be moved. The child is an MCI, which is Michigan Children's Institute Ward, which essentially just means the parental rights have been terminated. And the move is a result of the MCI superintendent, who is the legal guardian of the child, denies the consent to adopt by the caregiver. So essentially, the MCI superintendent has control over adoptions and authorizing them. If he denies them, then the move can't be appealed. And finally, the child is an Indian child, and the foster care placement or the proposed placement is within or to the placement preferences listed in the Michigan Indian Family Preservation Act, MCL 712B, period 23. So those are all times when you can't really appeal a case, unfortunately, but a lot of them are court ordered, so it's kind of outside of everybody's control, especially the agency. So it's not even an agency move. It's more than likely a judge that's decided this, and the court is the one that has the overall say. An exception to this is if the agency has reasonable cause to believe that the child has suffered sexual abuse or non-accidental physical injury, or that there is substantial risk of harm to the child's emotional well-being, the agency may change the child's foster care placement without prior notification of the foster parents. If the foster parent objects to the removal of the child in this situation, he or she may appeal to the foster care board within 3 days of the child's removal. So definitely, if you're being accused of something like this and you have not done it, please make sure you get within that 3 days. Make sure you give all the information, especially if it's something you had no control over. The non-accidental physical injury, children like the toddler we have, they bump around a lot. We've even had early on in here on Wednesdays, and she's like, sometimes you gotta let them kind of like bonk their head when they're moving around underneath the table, because if you constantly put your hand there and stop it, they're never going to realize that, you know, if I gotta duck my head, because if I go up too fast, I'm going to bonk it right here. So make sure you are providing all that information. You always want to put the child's safety first, but little kids are very, very chaotic. Even the kid, he decided that he was going to stand up on his bike and try to do tricks and end up falling and scraping his knee, and then was upset because he fell off. And we're like, were you doing it on purpose? You kind of were messing around, so you can't really be upset at anyone other than yourself that you fell off your bike after we told you to make sure you weren't messing around. So always protect yourself, protect the children, make sure you're always looking out for their safety. Obviously, you always had a helmet, but not everything you can go through. We ended up getting him knee pads after that and elbow pads. You would think riding a bike would be something you wouldn't mess around too much on, but he is just a kid, and they kind of get into that. I remember being a kid too. So, additionally, the Foster Care Review Board will not hear appeals when the following circumstances exist. The appeal request is presented by someone other than the foster parent for whom the child is being moved, only current foster parents can file the appeal. So this means if you're a family member, no matter if you have the best intentions, if the foster parents aren't the ones willing to make that appeal, then they're not going to hear it. So if you are concerned about the move, reach out to the foster parents and make sure you push them to do it, especially because the second circumstance is if it's beyond those 3 days and they have not received, or 3 days from the date of the written receipt of notice from the supervising agency, you can't appeal after those 3 days. You have 3 working days from that date. So how to appeal if you're a foster parent? To request an appeal, a foster care parent may contact the Foster Care Review Board at 1-888-866-6566. That or there will be other information on the notice of the move that will have the way to contact them online if you're able to and present the information. You'll also have somewhere that you'll have to send the written statement and all the written information to, such as supporting documents and everything. So please make sure you're doing that. Make sure that they're made within 3 days of any proposed moves. Do not dilly-dally. It is something where there's not much leniency. They are super busy. Our foster care review board was almost a month behind, so they ended up moving the kid, and our foster care review board wasn't even for another month after it was like a half a month, about 2 weeks after that. So please make sure you don't sit on that. Make sure you get it out there, get it done. For the investigation, the foster care review board will have 3 to 5 people on the panel. They will be from the local county from where the foster care placement is located for the proposed move. The board will either meet via like Zoom, that or at a DHHS office in the county. The agency and foster parents are responsible for participation in the foster care review board, so please make sure if you are requesting that change that you are attending that meeting, because you do not want to request this hearing and then not go to it. It will look extremely bad for you. If you can't attend due to work, make sure you fill out the interested parties link that they are providing you. Explain why you can't be there. Tell them all the attempts you've made to get the time off. Maybe you try to work with your supervisor. Explain all that to them so that they know why you aren't there. Because if you aren't there, it does look extremely bad for you, especially because they're going to ask pertinent information from you, especially about the placement change. So any persons who have direct interest or pertinent information about the change, this includes agency caseworkers, supervisors, DHHS monitors and supervisors, the children's attorneys, the children's tribe if that's part of it, any individual that is determined by the foster care review board staff. So upon completing their investigation, the foster care review board will make its determination. The office will convey the board's findings and writings to the parents, foster parents, agency, court, attorneys, tribe if applicable, and to the MCI superintendent if parental rights have been terminated at that time. If after its investigation the board determines that the move is in the child's best interest, the agency may move the child and the appeal is ended. Which doesn't make sense for ours, especially because they moved the child before the foster care review board had time to meet. So I'm kind of interested to see how that goes. And I will make sure to do a podcast to update that information so that everybody can know kind of what happens in that situation, because I feel like this is definitely an odd situation to be in. So if the board determines that the move is not in the best child's interest, the agency must maintain the child's placement in the foster home until the final decision is made by the court or by the MCI superintendent if the parental rights have been terminated. For temporary court wards, the court must set a hearing date no sooner than 7 days and no later than 14 days after the review board's notice. And then if it is a permanent court ward, the MCI superintendent must make the decision within 14 days of receipt by the board regarding the child's placement and inform each interested party of their decision. So when I was in college, I did major in criminal justice. I had a professor, I believe his name was Professor Gross. It's been years, and I tried looking him up and sadly couldn't find him. He was an amazing guy. Ended up losing his entire retirement when the market crashed, like years before I was in college, and it was about 2013. But he was one of the nicest guys ever. He actually volunteered on one of the foster care review boards. We went, sat in on it, got to listen to the information that was provided. At this time, it was in person. This was anything virtual, honestly. So they met in person, heard the foster parents' pleas. The child was there. They made their decision. I believe that they were moving the child because there were a lot of tears and emotion. I can't remember everything that happened, but as you can see, not everything, even if you're concerned, and the child seemed to want to stay with the parents. So that really shows that not even with the child making pleas for one situation or the other will it always end up in a way that is wanted by even most of the parties. So, and then for ours is, like I've mentioned, so bonkers. They were moving the kid, and we requested the foster care review board, and then they moved him anyways, even though they knew we had the foster care review board coming up. So now he ended up moving. We had the foster care review board. We're still waiting on their decision. So now we're sitting at virtual visits, which, I mean, we have a toddler and a child. Normally the child, when he was talking to his relatives, he'd always be super chatty. He'd spend the whole time talking to them. But ever since he's moved in with the family, now he seems really reserved. He doesn't really want to talk. It's one of the craziest things I've ever... It's like a complete 180 switch on his whole personality, which is super concerning to me. So I'm hoping we can find something out, because something doesn't feel right, especially with how he's acting. It's just not like him. I know when Cassie and the toddler were up at the campsite, he was excited to see her parents because he was super attached to them. But other than that, most of the visits, he just kind of zones out, doesn't really want to talk about anything. So, unfortunately, we don't really know what's going on. Hopefully we can get somebody involved just to make sure he's okay. It's not that I want to harass them. I'm not petty like the family has been, and I'm not going to report everything they do. So, hopefully we can figure something out. But during the meeting, the foster care agency and the attorneys and everything said how it was such the best move for him, how they wanted to do it before school started, even though the toddler has no definite time frame for when he's going to be moving in with his father. And there's been some backsliding and reunification, so we don't even know if and or when it's even going to happen. So they essentially separated these two. The two siblings sent them states away from each other to only be able to do virtual visits. And like I said in the other podcast, anybody who's experienced anything virtually, there's not a real connection there. It's lonely. I had 2 deployments. I got to see my great-grandma through a computer screen. It was not the best thing ever. It was super lonely. And so I can imagine as children under the age of 10, it's lonely, especially because the toddler says the kid's name all the time, especially before bed. So hopefully I'll have some good news or news at all to share. Again, I apologize for the podcast coming out so late. I know there's not a whole lot of people that listen to it, but I thank all of you that do. Thank you so much for listening to all my ramblings again. Please like, subscribe, share. Email me at fosterdaddirective@gmail.com with any feedback, ideas, stories, anything like that. And hopefully all remains quiet on the foster front. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you so much for listening. Bye.